Okay, let's create our gear in Photoshop. First thing I want you to do is come up here to File, and then select New. And the new dialog comes up, and we're going to create a new image for our new graphical gear. In the width, I want you to put in 450, and make sure that's set to pixels. And you can change that by clicking a little drop-down arrow there, and just select pixels. And for the height, we're going to go 450 pixels as well. And the resolution, 72. And for the color mode, I'm going to leave it on RGB color. Now, if you're using, you're going to design this gear for print. In other words, if you're going to print this out on a piece of paper and you want to maintain its quality, you want it to look as good as possible, then you might want to increase the resolution to 300 dpi. Okay, and then change the pixels or change this from pixels to inches. So if you wanted to print it out, let's say 6 inches by 6 inches, then come in here in the width and enter 6, and in the height enter 6. And then that way, when it prints out, it'll be 6 inches tall by 6 inches wide. I'm going to go ahead and change this back because for this tutorial, we're going to use pixels. So 450 pixels wide by 450 pixels tall, 72 dpi. Color mode will be set to RGB color, and the background contents, white will be just fine. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And here's our new image, and you can see I have my rulers turned on, and they sort of help me out a little bit, you know, if I need to line something up or whatever. And if you want to go ahead and use rulers, then come up here to View and just come down here, make sure rulers is checked. Okay? Now, the first thing, we need to change some options in the preferences in Photoshop. Come over here to Edit, and then come down here to Preferences, and select Units and Rulers. Okay, for the rulers on this tutorial, we're going to want to use pixels. So make sure pixels is set, and sometimes it can be inches. It's usually default to inches. If it is, just go ahead and set that to pixels. And if you got that, then come up here to the drop-down menu and the preferences, and we need to set some things in the guides, grids, and slices. Let's see what we got here. We want to make sure the grid line is every 50 pixels. So you can see everything is set in here already for me, but it could be a little different on your Photoshop, okay, than it is my Photoshop. So make sure the grid line is every 50 pixels, okay, before you begin. And the subdivisions, make sure that is 2. Okay, so if you've got all that straightened out, all set up and everything, go ahead and click OK. And to turn on the grid, come up here to View, and down here, Show, and select Grid. And if you don't see anything, make sure the extras is checked here. Okay? All right. Okay, we're ready to go to the next step. Come over here to the Layers palette and make a new layer right on top of the background layer there. Now, select the Line tool on the toolbar. Now, if you don't see the Line tool, the Rectangle tool may be selected. And if you click on the Rectangle tool, you can come down here and select the Line tool. And that's the one we need, the Line tool. So after you select the Line tool, come up here on the Options bar in Photoshop and make sure Fill Pixels is selected, okay? If Shape Layers is selected, it's probably not going to work. So make sure Fill Pixels is selected, and then over here where it says Weight, this is the weight of the line, you want to enter in 30, okay? And if you've gotten that, then you're all ready to go. All right, now here's the little tricky part. It's not that tricky unless you make it tricky, but we need to find the center of this image. We need to find the line that is center. And so this is pretty easy to do if you have your grid set up just like mine. And it's actually a dotted line, and it's right about here. And if I come down here, I'll just scroll down and you can see this is where it is. And I can find the center of the image. Just by using my eye, I can see that that little crosshair, the mouse, is right in the middle of the image. So what I want you to do is come down 2 boxes. Let's say this is a one box here, and this is another box here. So position the mouse in the middle, and just come down here, 2 boxes, 1, 2, and make sure that's right in the middle, right, just like it is on the screen. Hold down the Shift key, and then click on the mouse, and it'll draw out this line. And I want you to keep dragging down to right where you see that I'm dragging down to here. There you go. So we've got 2 boxes on the top. We also have 2 grid boxes here. We have one right here, and we also have one here at the bottom. See, I just want to make sure that you have everything lined up the same way I do. That way, when we create the gear, the one that I'm creating will look just like the one you're going to create. Okay, that's just a little tricky part at the beginning of the tutorial. Everything else is pretty straightforward. So, okay, let's get on with the next step here. Now we need to duplicate the layer that we've just created, the line on there. I'm going to go ahead and drag that layer to the new layer icon on the bottom and let go of the mouse, and you can see it's layer 1 copy now. Ooh, cool. All right, and we're going to want to rotate this duplicate, okay? And I'll come up here to Edit and select Free Transform, and then hold down the Shift key. And then come up here on the corner of this line and hold down the mouse. And you're going to want to rotate that 30 degrees, just about like how you see it there. If you're not really sure how much you're rotating this line, then look up here on the options bar and you can see right here it says 30. And if it says 30, then you're doing okay. I'm going to go ahead and press the Enter key on the keyboard to confirm that. As you can see what we're doing here, it might not look like anything great, but we're creating the teeth on the gear. And so we need to, it's a little kind of a repetitious thing we're going to do here. I need you to come over here and click on the original layer again and then drag it to the new layer icon, and you're going to make another duplicate. Always duplicate the original, okay? Never duplicate a line that's already rotated, because if we duplicate the original, we'll still retain its quality. It's a quality thing, you know? We got to have high quality, you know? All right, anyways. So I've duplicated the original line layer again. I'm going to come up here to Edit, and we're going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to come down here to Free Transform, hold down the Shift key, and then we're going to rotate that, not 30, but 60 degrees this time. Okay, and then press Enter on the keyboard to confirm that. All right, this is fun. Are we having fun? Having a little music or something going? Okay, I'm going to come down here to the layer number 1, our original layer, and drag that to the new layer icon once more. And then come up here to Edit, Free Transform, and then hold down the Shift key, and then rotate that again, but this time 90 degrees. It'll be a 90-degree angle here, just going straight across. And then I'm going to press the Enter key on the keyboard, and I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the original layer number 1, and then come up here to Edit and Free Transform, and then hold down the Shift key and rotate that again. And this time it looks like it's going to be 120 degrees. And then I'll just press the Enter key on the keyboard to confirm that. And I'll come down here to layer 1 and drag that to the new layer icon. This is the last one, folks. And I'm going to come up here to Edit and select Free Transform. And then hold down the Shift key. And this time I can actually go the other way. I'm going to go back and just, that'll be a minus 30 degrees if you want to be exact. And then that looks pretty good. Remember, hold down the Shift key when you do that. That way you'll get a perfect rotate every 30 degrees. It's really nice. Go ahead and press the Enter key on the keyboard, by the way, to confirm that. Okay. All right. And what we got next here? Let's go over to Layer Palette, the Layers palette here, and make a new layer. Okay. And the layer becomes layer number 2. I want you to drag layer number 2 all the way to the top. Make sure it's all the way at the very top. Okay, now select the radial marquee tool over here on the toolbar, and we're going to make a fixed selection. Really easy to do because all you have to do is type in numbers. And wouldn't everything be so easy if we could just type in numbers? Well, that's what we're doing on this tutorial, and we're going to do it a few times. So anyways, come up here to the options bar after you've selected the radial marquee tool, and then select fixed size. Okay, where the style is, make sure that's fixed. And for the width, we're going to want to put in 200 for the width, and for the height, it's going to be 200. And then just click on the image here, and you will see a circle selection appear. Now I need you to center that circular selection right on the image. And you know what would really help? If we turn the snap on. By having the snap on, that will help us line it up perfect. So come up here to View and turn on the snap. Now we should have done that earlier, but you know how it is. It's sometimes you forget things. Okay, so come over here in the selection, and I want you to position the selection directly in the middle of this gear shape here, and you can see it snap in. Watch. See, it like snaps in automatically, which, it's just a huge help. It's just so we don't have to zoom in and get it all perfect. The snap it'll snap it right on there for us. Okay, that looks pretty good right there. Next, come up here to edit and select fill, because we're gonna wanna fill the selection with black. So where it says contents, make sure that's black. If you're not sure what the foreground color, if the foreground color is black or completely black, you can just come down here and select black and then go ahead and click OK. There we go. All right, see how easy this is? It's not too bad. Now let's go up here to select, and I want you to select all. Select the whole shape. And then now we're gonna come over here to edit and copy merged. Okay. Now we don't need the selection anymore, so I'm gonna come up here to select and deselect that. And now this is really cool because we get to go into channels. I'm gonna come over here to channels on the channels palette and create a new channel. Come down here, click on the channels palette, come all the way down to the bottom. See this button here? Click on that. It's the create new channel button. Okay. And then come up here to edit and then select paste. Voila. And now come up here to image, adjustments, and I want you to invert that channel. Just like that. Easy. All right, so now we have some like shape of a gear, okay? It looks pretty cool, but you know what? We're gonna make it a lot better, all right? Okay, next step. Come up here to filter and select blur, and then come over here and select Gaussian blur. And right down here where it says radius, I want you to put 6.0, okay, for the radius. Then when you're done with all that, just go ahead and click OK and check it out. We've blurred the gear. All right, now let's get on to the next step here. Come over here to image, adjustments, levels. Now this is gonna smooth out the blur, okay? The input levels here, let's go with 130 for the first box. And then the second box here, we're gonna go with 0.25. And then the last box here, select it and put in 172. Check it out. And if you've gotten all that, I can go ahead and move the levels out of the way here, and you can see that the gear, it's starting to look more realistic. You know how gears look when the corners and stuff's all rounded off? It looks really slick. Somebody might look at that and go, how did you make that shape in Photoshop? Well, you know, and they don't. So you can impress your graphic design friends with this technique. And I'm gonna go ahead and click OK because we're ready for the next step. All right, next step is to select the radio marquee tool. It might already be selected. If it is, hey, that's just one less step you have to do, right? So go ahead and select the radio marquee and then come up here, make sure this is set to fixed size on the options bar. And in the width, I want you to put in 50. Okay, and then for the height, that needs to be 52 or 50 also. And then come in here, come over here to the image and click on the image, and you'll create another circular selection. See how it's perfect there, and it snaps right into where I want it. You see that? Let's do that one more time. Okay, there it is. All right. Okay, next, go ahead and press the delete key on the keyboard. And we've deleted the center of the gear now. And now it's okay to go up here to select and to deselect the selection. Okay, let's go back to the layers palette, the wonderful layers palette. And I want you to create a new layer. Come down here to the create new layer icon. There it is, the new layer. All right, now I want you to do something real quick. I want you to press D and then X on the keyboard, because then we can reset our foreground and background color. This just helps us, makes things a little easier. And then this way, the next step we're gonna do will come out right. So go ahead and press D and X on the keyboard, and then come up here to filter, because we're gonna apply the clouds filter. Come down here to render, and then select clouds. Check that out. After clouds, I want you to come up here to filter and select noise, and then select add noise, okay? And just put in 10 for the amount, and then check down here, check Gaussian and monochromatic. And then after you get that, go ahead and click OK. Next, come up here to Filter and select Blur. This time, select the Radial Blur, which is a really neat, interesting effect that's going to really help us out on this tutorial in creating the brushed steel on the gear. So this is really cool. In the amount area, I want you to enter in 30, okay? And then for quality, come down here and just dot the best option there. And then go ahead and click OK. And you can see it has sort of like a saw blade, brushed steel texture type look to it. Really, really slick. Okay. Now after we've done this radial blur, you can see it didn't quite center the radial blur on the image. Let me show you what I mean here. You can see the crosshair here that I have. I'm actually going to select the move tool so you can see my cursor a little better. But I'm going to come right over here, and you can see this is the very center of the image, but you can see the blur, the radial blur is off a little bit. So what I want you to do is make sure that the radial blur layer is selected, which it should be, and then come over here with select the move tool and just move the layer so it's more centered there. And it's going to be a little hard with the snap on. So to make this easier, come over to the keyboard and with the arrow keys on the keyboard, center that blur, the very center of the blur, and the center of the image the best you can. See that? There we go. It looks pretty good. That looks pretty good right there. Okay. Okay, next step. Come over here and make a new layer. In the layers palette, there we go. Now we're going to select the radial marquee tool again. Come over here to the toolbar, select the radial marquee, and then make sure style is set to fixed size. It should be already set. And then for the width, now we're going to enter in 200. And for the height, we're going to go 200. And then just click on the image, and you should see the radial selection appear. And go ahead and center that radial selection right in the middle. So, you can just kind of eye it. You can see from the center of the blurred area there, you can pretty much tell that that's the center. And it should snap right where it's supposed to go. That's what's really cool about the snap. Okay, now we're going to use the gradient tool next. And we're going to use it on the same layer, the current layer that we're on right now. So come over on the toolbar here and select the gradient tool. Now, if you don't see the gradient tool, the paint bucket tool may be selected. It might look like this. So just go ahead and click on the paint bucket tool, and then you can select the gradient tool. Okay, we need to make a white to black gradient. We don't have to make one. We need to actually select a white to black gradient, okay? So come up here on the preset gradient picker there, and the first one will work just fine. I'm gonna go ahead and select that. Or double click on it. And then come over to the image, and we're going to make it go white from top and then black on the bottom. So I'm going to come over here just to the top of that selection there and hold down the Shift key on the keyboard and drag down just to the bottom of the radial selection, and then release the mouse, and you can see it fill in with that gradient. Isn't that beautiful? Okay. Okay, folks, and the next step, we need to select the elliptical marquee tool one more time. So come over here to the toolbar and select the elliptical marquee tool, or radial marquee tool. Sometimes I call it either way, but select the elliptical marquee tool. And I tell you what, let's go ahead and just select the selection right now. Go up to deselect and select deselect. And then over here on the width, change that to 150, okay? Whoops. Change that to 150 for the width and then 150 for the height. And then come over to the image and click on it, and you can see our other radial selection here appear. Now we're going to do another gradient, okay, which is really cool. I'm going to come over to the toolbar and select the gradient tool, okay, and we're going to use the same gradient we used before, but this time we're going to go the other way. So that means that there's going to be white on the bottom and then black on the top. Really easy to do, because all you have to do is hold down the Shift key, come down to the bottom of this radial selection here, and then now move the mouse up. So you're going up this time instead of down. Simple. Release the mouse when you get to the top. There you go. It's done. Okay, great. Come up here to select and deselect the selection. And now something really cool, because you're really going to like this. You can see the object blend in with the texture in the background, and I will show you how to do that. Come over on the layers palette and make sure layer 4 is activated, which is the top layer. And over on the layer mode menu, I want you to select overlay. Voila, you can see it blend right in. Okay, that looks pretty cool. Now, this is really easy. All we have to do is make some extra layers invisible. Like we don't really need them anymore, so we need to make them invisible. So I'm just gonna come down here. Basically, leave the top 2 layers. Everything else below that, make it invisible. So watch, I'll come in here, layer 2, invisible. And all our little, all our gear pedals that we made, we don't need those anymore. So I'm gonna come in here and make those invisible. So we just see the top 2 layers, okay? Okay, now we need to load the selection. Okay, let me show you how to do that. Come over here to the channels palette. There's 2 ways to do it. I've been using Photoshop for a long time, and this is the only way I load the selection. There's 2 ways you can do it. And the first way is to come up here to select, and then select load a selection. Come over here to the channel area, and then select the drop down, and then select alpha 1. But see, that's a lot of steps. What I like to do is just come right over the channels palette, and this is what I want you to do, is come over to the channels palette and hold down the control key on the keyboard. Now on the Mac, that is the command key, okay? So hold that down and click on alpha 1, and you can see it select. Easy as that. Only like there's just a few steps to do, and I feel like it's a lot faster. This is the way that I do it. So come right back over to the layers palette, and then we're going to do some fancy inverse and delete stuff with the selection. So come over here to select, and I want you to inverse that selection, okay, on layer 4. And then now press the delete key on the keyboard, okay? And you can see we've made a little hole. You can't see it on the image, but if you look over on the layer, you can see we've deleted a little hole on that layer there. And now I want you to select the layer below that one, which is layer number 3. This is the layer with the radial blur on it, okay? Come over to the keyboard, press the delete key. Boom. Check it out. There you go. Okay, folks, well, we just about got it. We're pretty much done with the gear, but I'm going to show you a few more things to make it look even cooler, okay? First, what we're going to do is merge the 2 top layers together, okay? Go ahead and link the top layer with the layer second from the top there, layer 4 and layer number 3, okay? So link those 2 together, and then come up here to layer, and then select merge linked. And just merge those together there. Okay, and now come up here to select and select deselect, because we don't need the selection anymore. And then come up here to view, go down to show, and uncheck the grid, because we don't need the grid anymore either. Now there's a lot of things we can do. We have the shape of the gear now. We have a texture applied to the gear. Now to make it look even cooler and to do other effects, we can start applying layer styles to this shape, and to really make it a big difference on how it looks. So come up here to layer, and then go to layer style, and let's do a drop shadow. You can add a drop shadow really easy. And I'll just come in here and just do some, just a basic drop shadow. Doesn't have to be anything, spectacular. Just some drop shadow there. And then over on the layer style on the very side, on the left side here, where it says bevel and emboss, I want you to click on that. Okay, and we can do some really cool things, and we can make it look more 3D-ish. And then for the technique on the bevel and emboss selection there, select chisel hard, and you can get a lot more of a straighter fine edge around the gear. It looks really cool. And I'm gonna go ahead and take that down to number 3 for the size, and then up the depth just a little bit, just to make it a little sharper. And look at that, check that out. See, that's cool. We can do so many things with this. And if the bevel's too heavy, then you can just go ahead and decrease the size to 2 if you don't like all that bevel. Look at that. That looks pretty cool right there. And I can increase the depth to make the edges a little sharper. Look at that. Okay, we don't want to spend all day on this layer style thing. There's so many options to choose from. But let me show you another technique, okay? So let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and click OK and get out of that. And what we're going to do is apply a texture to the gear. Now in the goodies folder on the CD, you will see a file called Rust. Open that file right now. It should look just like this. This is the Rust texture. Okay, what I want you to do, when you got the texture open, the texture image, come up here to select and then go select all. And then over here on the edit menu, select copy. And then back on the gear image, just click on the background there and the gear image should come back. Okay, now I want you to come over to the channels palette and then hold down the control key on the keyboard, and that is the command key on the Macintosh, and click on Alpha 1. It's the only channel we have, so it makes it pretty easy to do. Go back on the layers palette, click back on the layers or on the gear layer there if it's not already selected, and I want you to make a new layer above that one, okay? And then come over here to the edit, and then go down here to paste into, and you're going to paste that texture inside that shape, okay? Now, we kind of lost some of our dynamics on our gear, but don't worry because we're going to change that right now. Okay, check this out. I want you to come over to the layer mode menu here, right here. Click on the little arrow and it'll pop down. I want you to experiment with these options because the more experimenting you do, the better you get in Photoshop and the more results you get. Come down here and select darken, for instance. Check that out. You can see it looks like the actual rust is just melded right on the gear and it looks so cool. And there's so many other options we can choose from here. We can do screen, which sort of has a neat effect to it, and also overlay, which is one I use all the time in a lot of the graphics that I do. And just experiment with all these, even if they look bad. If they look bad, then select another one. I'm going to go with darken because that looks so melodic and cool. Someone looks at that and they might not think it was done on a computer. They might think it's done real, or it was created real, or it is real. Okay, I gotta calm down here. I'm getting a little into it because I get excited, you know. I mean, everybody gets excited about stuff. So there you go. That's how to create gears in Photoshop.